everybody. My name is Jordan Murphy, and welcome to my first podcast of Breakthroughs with Jordan Murphy. I'm your host, Jordan Murphy. Have I said my name enough yet? All right, so in this introductory podcast, over the next couple minutes, I'm just going to give you a little bit of an overview about what the show's about, who I am, and then get into the actual interview with my first guest. Give a little bit of a teaser of the actual interview itself, and then get right into it. Be patient with me, because I thought it might be a good idea to give you a little bit of an idea of who the heck I am, because you probably never heard of me unless you Google and find out more about me, because that's kind of what everybody does, isn't it? You know, when you go on a job interview or for a first date, I'm sure that's what people do. It's been a while since I've been on a first date, but people look up who people are. So have at it. Anyway, I am a happily married man with a beautiful wife. We've been married 15 years, and we are still just in love. We're still loving life. And that's extraordinary as far as I'm concerned. But more on that later. I have 3 beautiful children. I live in Los Angeles. I'm a working actor. And I was moved to start a podcast, and I'll discuss that more shortly. So first things first, what is a breakthrough? You know, I looked it up in the dictionary, and it says an act or an instance of moving through or beyond an obstacle, a sudden advance, especially in knowledge or technique. It sounds a little clinical to me, but my intention is to invite friends, colleagues, real people to sit down and have a conversation and to share authentically about their personal experiences with breakdowns and breakthroughs. You know, I really believe that people who are up to big things in their lives are going to experience breakdowns and breakthroughs. They're not always pleasant, but they do help us to grow and to have success in our lives. So my feeling was, why not share other people's experiences of that with the intention of the people listening to walk away with some value? I don't know about you guys, but when I am in a situation where I'm in a group setting or with friends and someone is sharing authentically, the chances are that I'm going to walk away with some value. It may be a word, it may be a statement, it may be the whole sharing conversation. So during each episode, I'm going to be discussing people's experience with breakdowns, breakthroughs, why they happen, when they happen, and how they move through them to ultimately achieve success in their lives.
I just felt like, am I going to do this again? You know, was this my life? Especially because, again, I hadn't yet found love and hadn't had children. And I thought, you know, now's the time to do my own thing. And I thought, I'm going to start a company designed for women like me. I later dubbed P.A.N.K, P.A.N.K, Professional Aunt NoKids, this growing demographic of cosmopolitan American women.
So that was just a brief snippet of the wonderful interview I had today with Melanie Notkin. We're going to hear a lot more about her life, her experiences, and her breakthroughs. Today's episode is sponsored by Audible. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I don't have the time, or should I say I don't make the time anymore to read books. And you know what actually I've come to discover is that I'm more of an auditory learner. I like to listen to stuff more than I like to read it. And the listening to it seems to sink into my thick skull better than reading it. So anyway, what I'm saying is I do have time to listen to books when I'm not enjoying a podcast, of course. And I love me some Audible. Maybe you guys have heard of audible.com. Basically, it's the new improved version of books on tape. Got it on the interweb, available for you. So for a limited time, you can try Audible and get 2 free audiobooks. You just visit my website, breakthroughswithjordanmurphy.com, and follow the link on the homepage to take advantage of this sweet deal. That's breakthroughs, plural, with jordanmurphy.com, and just click the link right there on the homepage. This episode is also brought to you by Amazon Fresh. Now, if you're like me and you have a busy schedule, you got kids and you've got sports practice and rehearsals and play dates and school pickup and drop off, and you don't have a nanny or a staff, and you have a job to go to, then Amazon Fresh could be the answer. I mean, it's the answer for me. It's super easy. It's super convenient. So skip the checkout line and have fresh groceries delivered to your door. You just got to visit breakthroughswithjordanmurphy.com to get the $25 off your first order using Amazon Fresh. This is a limited time offer. So again, check out breakthroughswithjordanmurphy.com. Click the Amazon Fresh link and get your $25 off your first order using Amazon Fresh. Now, my guest, Melanie Notkin, is a national best-selling author of the book Savvy Auntie, the ultimate guide to cool aunts, great aunts, godmothers, and all women who love kids, and the founder and personality behind Savvy Auntie, the beloved lifestyle brand celebrating modern aunthood. Melanie is the foremost expert on the emerging demographic of childless, often single women in North America. She has contributed to the New York Times, New York Post, Huffington Post, Psychology Today, among others. Her recent book, Otherhood, was inspired by her life in New York City. You can learn all about Melanie on her website at melanienotkin.com and even read exactly what I just said to you in this introduction on her About page. But today, Melanie is going to share with us some breakthroughs that have impacted her life. So, Melanie, thank you so much for joining me today.
I am so happy to be here, Jordan. And maybe I should even say back here, because you and I had a great conversation years ago.
I know. And you know what? You've been a busy bee this whole decade. I mean, even before we met, you had already released the best-selling book, Savvy Auntie. You were already blowing up the social media space with Twitter. You've been a busy young lady the last decade.
Well, thank you. And thank you for keeping me young, even a decade later. I really love the young lady thing.
You like that?
When I was 10, 12, I liked it because it was a step up from being a child.
Right.
Then when you're 25, you're like, young lady makes me sound like a child. Like, what do you do? And then when you're in your 40s, you're like, bring on the young. I'm good.
Yeah, not so bad. I'll take the young where I can get it. I'll take it when I can get it.
Exactly.
I read up a lot of stuff online about you. There's plenty of information about what you've been up to. I was so psyched for you having that TEDx talk that you did, and I watched that. And I know a bit about you, obviously, but for people who may not or are just hearing about you for the first time, before we get into a little bit deeper conversation, why don't you, give us a little bit of background on who you are. And, one of the main things, and this kind of speaks to what this podcast is about, is, what was the inciting incident that kicked off your journey into Savvy Auntie land and Otherhood and, this unique market that you cater to? I mean, at the point that this interview is occurring, right around the corner is a holiday that you actually created, didn't you? It's Auntie Day?
Yep.
That's
right. The fourth Sunday in July every year. And this is actually the 10th annual Auntie's Day. So we could call it the Young Lady Auntie's Day.
That's it.
No, I'm kidding.
You say June? Is it June 22nd?
No, July. No, July 22nd. Yes. So I say June. No, July. Sunday. It's the fourth Sunday in July every year.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I appreciate your clarifying that for me because I had it the other way and I don't want to miss it on my calendar.
Good. Yeah.
Okay. I think it's such a wonderful market that you're speaking to that I think oftentimes can go unnoticed and uncelebrated. So go ahead and tell me a little bit about the inciting incident, the inception of Savvy Auntie and your background.
Well, thank you, because it was this breakthrough moment that not immediately, but a few years later brought me to creating this company. It was always my dream to get married and have children. You know what? Even qualifying it as a dream makes it sound like I didn't expect it to come true. That maybe I would hope to have a husband and kids. No, that was my life. I was going to have a husband whom I loved and children whom I loved. And that has not yet happened. And I'm now 49. And about 14 years ago, my nephew was a toddler. And he's the first of a few. I have one nephew and 5 nieces. And he turned to me out of nowhere. Thankfully, there are witnesses. Some family members were there. And he said, Auntie Melanie, sorry, I'm doing that thing that women do when they copy a baby's voice. We're family. And the way he looked at me at that moment was he got it. And to be fair, I had been coaching him since day one that I'm his family. I'm his aunt. I'm not a fly-by-night, a nanny or a babysitter or a friend. I wanted him to know that I was his family.
Yeah, you're not just visiting.
Right. And that we have a very special bond, a relationship, and that he was safe with me. And when he said those words, he got it. And he had just turned 2 a couple of months earlier. And he looked at me like he knew from that moment, this is the lady who does very nice things. Young lady who does very nice things for me. She buys me things. She gives me ice cream. She sings to me, dances with me. And she's also, like always, hopefully, please God, going to be around.
Even if she's not family, I should probably keep her close.
Right. Like even if she's my mommy or daddy's best friend.
That's right.
Like this is whatever family means.
Yeah.
She's in.
I like it.
We have a bond.
Yeah.
And I realized, Jordan, at that moment, as a woman who very much wanted her own children, and I at the time was, God, I can't do math. I was in my early 30s. And was still expecting to get married and have children. But in the meantime, my nephew and then subsequently, his twin sisters were, the center of my life. And I realized, gosh, there are no resources for the modern aunt. That aunthood seemed like an old gray-haired or even blue-haired lady. It seemed like the woman who you avoid at the holiday party because she's going to pinch your cheeks off.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, it's time for aunts to be sort of less old Aunt Sadie and more Carrie Bradshaw. Yeah. She was aunt to Charlotte's and Miranda's kids. So at the time I was working for a beauty company, and when I left thinking about what I would do next with my life, and at this point I was in my late 30s, I think it was 37, 38, and thinking about what to do next. And I'd go to a job interview, and I'm telling you, Jordan, I would get off that elevator and I would have agita because whether it was gray decor or yellow decor or green decor, I just felt like, am I going to do this again? Was this my life? Especially because, again, I hadn't yet found love and hadn't had children. And I thought, now's the time to do my own thing. And I thought I'm going to start a company designed for women like me. I later dubbed P.A.N.K, P.A.N.K, Professional Aunt NoKids, this growing demographic of cosmopolitan American women. You
say growing demographic. It's extraordinary. It's nearly half, nearly 50%, right?
It is nearly 50%. So the U.S. Census data has looked at fertility since 1976. And in 1976, which is just 40 plus years ago, at the time, women of fertile age, which they counted as 15 through 44, 35% were childless. When I started my company, that number was 46%.
Right.
And now, looking at that same number, 15 to 44, the number is 48.7% of women are childless. Now, that doesn't mean they are all aunts. Certainly, not all are aunts by relation. Some are, as I call it, aunts by choice, the ABCs. They're aunts by marriage because their husband has nieces and nephews. So in 2012, I worked with Weber Shandwick and KRC Research on a North American joint study on the P.A.N.K. And we found 23 million American women or North American women ages 18 plus who don't have a child of their own and have a special bond with a child in their life by relation or by choice. Okay. And again, we're still culling through the numbers now, but I just did another research study, and the numbers are just growing. So we've got this demographic of women who are really, frankly, unrecognized. It's as if we turn the W of woman to M for mother, and we leave out of the conversation this, again, growing group of women. Now, to be clear, most women in the end have children. What's interesting is that women who have their first child at age 35 plus actually end up having more children than the national fertility rate. they've been waiting for love. These women wait until they're married and then they have a child. It happens now that we're beginning to see in the census data and the CDC data that women at the end of their fertile age are beginning to have children on their own by choice.
Right.
But this is a demographic of women who are living a much longer lifespan before having their own children.
Right.
So it's time to acknowledge this cohort, certainly for brands, definitely with media. And I'm doing my best to help them even recognize themselves.
Right. Well, I mean, it definitely sounds like you're doing your part. And I think that, I guess what I'm hearing, at least, is the inception of it was, now you got to a certain age and saw that it was feeling unlikely that you were going to have kids, feeling like you were going to unlikely you were going to find love and have kids. I mean, and that was, I'm trying to get like kind of pinpoint where it was that I know it's not like one day you all of a sudden realized it, of course, but there's a build up to this kind of breakthrough. This acknowledgement of a number of things probably missing or not feeling right or being out of place. But was it you realizing the clock was ticking and you hadn't found him yet? Whatever. I don't know. Cause I know there's also the experience of having no children out of choice and having no children not out of choice.
Sure. Yeah. So you're right in that there's no like one moment, because, nothing will deter a woman who is hopeful for love, marriage, and children. Nothing will deter her from that hope, from keeping that hope until she's in her 40s and still has not found that person, or has finally found that love and she are having trouble conceiving, or he doesn't want children and she chooses love, which happens. And you're right, there are certainly women, and this is part of the cohort of the P.A.N.K, of women who are child free by choice. And right. I champion that choice. But for my own personal breakthrough that you're asking about, for me, it wasn't by choice. And yeah, in my late 30s, so a couple of things were going on. First, I was thinking about what to do next with my career, having experienced, working for some great companies corporately, living in New York City. And I think, we all, even though we think now, I certainly think 37, 38 is young. Then, you're starting to think, gosh, I'm hitting mid-age, right? 40 is around the corner. And I want to do something meaningful. And then on top of that, not having children, which has its own built-in legacy, hopefully a good one, that I wanted to do something meaningful. I wanted to leave a mark with my life in some way. And so that's when I created the company. I didn't think of Savvy Auntie in a way of I'm not going to have kids and therefore I'm happy being an aunt. It was never an either or. It's like being an aunt is not sort of a second place prize. And what happened actually in the meantime, and you mentioned Otherhood, and what was interesting was I wrote the book Savvy Auntie. I think I got the book deal in 2009. It came out spring 2011. And then in July 2011, I'd become a contributor for the Huffington Post, which at the time, it's changed recently, but at the time, my publisher had gotten me sort of the guest post at first, and they said, well, you can write, so you can keep writing, and I did. But they weren't telling contributors who saw it, when they saw it, how they saw it. So I wrote something called The Truth About Childless Women. Mm-hmm. And it was, sort of this antidote to this more common narrative of women who are childless have chosen to be childless. Even women who are single have chosen to be single. They're feminist and independent. And while that may be true of several women, it's not true of the majority of single women. Mm-hmm. And when I'm speaking specifically of single women, 35 plus, especially those who've graduated college tend to have their first birth at age 35 plus, and partly because they marry later and they choose to have children within the context of marriage. So I started, and that piece, that essay went viral. I mean, I literally ended up on CNN. When I say viral, like it went viral. And so I kept writing. I said, oh God, I've hit a nerve, because I would get emails from women, and these were, cosmopolitan women who of high executive levels. Like I shut my office door and I'm just crying, and I found your article and I'm emailing you and the signature file's there, and she's vice president of marketing for whatever. These aren't women who couldn't make it in life. These are women who are making it in life. And,
Sure.
and the one thing they can't control is finding love.
Yeah.
So I started to write about that again and again. And that's where my second book, the memoir, Otherhood, Modern Women Finding a New Kind of Happiness. I wrote that memoir, and frankly, I was at that time, talk about breakthrough, because now I'm feeling broken, right? Because now I'm in my early 40s and it hasn't happened, and I'm writing about it. And
which I gotta believe must have been somewhat cathartic.
Yes.
You know,
it was.
When I talk to people about breakdowns and when I talk to people about breakthroughs, it's always important, I think, to acknowledge that there's usually a breakdown preceding it.
Yes.
And that process or that period of time is usually uncomfortable, you know, like a butterfly in the chrysalis, you know, it's tight and it's squeezed and it's pushing and it's, you know, trying to break out. And yet if you don't have that process, the breakthrough doesn't allow you to really spread your wings, you know, to not, you know, lean too much on that metaphor. But
yeah, no, I love it and I agree. And, you know, and it's a continuum. It's not like, you know, something happens and, you know, the people say, well, and I hit rock bottom. It's not like I drank myself silly and ended up in jail, right? So there's not like this, like one event that got me there. It's this lingering ache, right? This lingering something is missing from my life, and writing about it was, and cathartic is certainly a word for it, but cathartic almost implies that I was holding something and let it go. Meaning there was some sort of guilt or some sort of something I had to get through. For me, writing about it was, I mean, I would literally put on like sad music in my earbuds and write something. And there, by the way, just so your listeners know, the book was actually hilarious and sexy and a lot of fun.
So it's not
sad. There are a couple of sad spots because that's life and it's a memoir, but no. It's more Sex in the City than like,
got it.
You know. So I would get to the heart, the most vulnerable parts of me, and throw those out into the universe, whether because I published them on Huffington Post or Washington Post or wherever I was writing at the time. And then, of course, as I was writing the book, and that helped because, again, more than, or different than cathartic, it was, well, you call it a breakthrough. And so it went through me.
Well, yeah. And I guess what I'm saying when I'm saying cathartic, I'm saying it is an opportunity for you to express it outside of yourself, to get it out, as opposed to it sitting inside of you and festering and dwelling and making you feel horrible. I know for myself personally, whenever I journal or share out loud, oftentimes what I'm hanging on to or upset about or processing that's making me uncomfortable, once it gets outside of me, oftentimes it really alleviates the pressure. It can even disappear it. You can actually even disappear the pressure. So that's what I mean by
I agree.
cathartic.
Yes, exactly. I agree. And I've been struggling with the word cathartic. It's not just you. I feel like there's a word missing that I'm, you know, because, but I agree. And actually, Susan David, wrote a book called Emotional Agility. And, she's a great piece in New York Magazine about journaling and how, those who've gone through, you know, some sort of, where they're now suffering from PTSD, they journaled and it really, really helped. And, I contributed to a piece for U.S. News and World Report recently about, you know, how childless women, especially, it was time for Mother's Day, but it's really evergreen, can, you know, not feel badly if they're having a bad day. You know, this isn't like a bad life, just a bad day. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I advised was journaling. And I had a writer email me in the middle of the night, having read something I was recently published of mine. And I said, you're a writer, use it. You know, cause she's not working. She left her job. And I'm like, you're a writer. You don't need my permission. Write it and you'll feel better. You don't have to show it. That's the thing about journaling. Unlike me, that I share it with the universe. You don't have to do that, you know, cause the universe will read it in that greater metaphysical sense of the universe. Like it will be heard.
Yes.
But doesn't mean a person has to read it. So
absolutely not. I've coached that with people in the past who were confronted or having a significant resentment or upset with somebody else and they wanted to unload on them. and they were going to call them on the phone, or they were going to confront them, or they were going to text them in the middle of the night. And I go, whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah.
Write a letter, write an email, destroy it.
Right.
Don't send it. Don't share it. Just get it off your chest. And I would say 9 times out of 10, the people are relieved once they actually take that on. They just it dissipates. It dissipates.
It does. It does because it is emotionally exhausting to get it out. And once you do that, you're like, oh, I'm too exhausted to even press send. Done it. Right?
Exactly.
Right?
I heard a great, speaking of resentment, I heard a great one. I'm sure people have heard it before, but keeping a resentment, holding on to a resentment is like taking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Right. Yes, exactly.
When in fact, you're the one suffering. But either way around it, that we're I'm digressing. That's my fault. I wanted to, with your journey, with your taking on this new adventure that is speaking to this unspoken to demographic, what kind of fears or obstacles that you can recall did you have to overcome? Did you have to confront in creating your brand?
So there are a couple of things that go on with me. I was once asked a question, I think it was actually posted on Facebook by Forbes Women or something. And, there was some sort of statistic, like X amount of entrepreneurs don't think that they're risk takers. And my comment was, well, of course they don't. Because if they thought it was a risk, they wouldn't take it. Like, it's natural, right? Like taking risk for those who create things, don't focus on the risk part. Mm-hmm. And maybe frankly, sometimes we should. They're focused on the end part, right? I have this vision and I'm just going to go do it. So, and this frankly, becoming an entrepreneur, has made me educate myself on how to survive when you are, you're alone, because I'm self-funded, I'm solo entrepreneur doing all of this, how to get through the hard times and how to get through the good times when you don't have someone to share them with, and how to get through being overwhelmed or being tired or whatever it is. And, I've learned that there's a lot of noise, a lot of, stuff that we overthink. And I'm actually very pleased with myself for no longer, we're all guilty of this, but doing my very best not to create stories in my head. Like something goes wrong. I don't create a story in my head. Well, this is what must have happened. And the reason why he's not emailing me back about that deal that we were talking about is because maybe this happened, right? And you react to it. And then, you bump into the person on the street and you're, upset or angry and they're like, what are you talking about?
You're reacting to a fairy tale.
Exactly.
You made it up. That actually had no semblance of reality.
Exactly. You wrote a script.
Yep.
Directed it. Did, where everybody stands and say, and you forgot to give the other person the script. and so, so I've become very good at that. So I don't have that noise. So fears in terms of, well, what would happen if, and what's going to happen. I don't really have that. And I've never been an anxious person to begin with in general. I mean, not that I'm abnormally not anxious. I'm just not an anxious person. Yeah. And then, 5.5 years ago, I started to meditate daily, transcendental meditation, which, happened because, this was before meditation became the thing. Cause we talk about it now all the time, but, really 5 years ago, nobody was talking about it really. And
I was just having this conversation in an interview I did this week, exactly like that, is to say, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years ago, people looked at you cross-eyed if you were talking about energy and vibration and meditation and any of that stuff. You were smoking something. But now it's much more acceptable to have a conversation openly about that type of practice.
Absolutely. And I think for me, part of it was, I just got the book deal for Otherhood, and I signed it. It was just before the winter holidays, and it was due June 1st. I mean, that's 6 months. And it was a memoir, and I wasn't supposed to use any of the content I'd already written. And I'm like, but this is my life. It's not like I have other chapters I didn't know about. So, like, and all that, and I emailed a friend of mine who's like a finance guy, like a really, successful finance guy. But a good friend, we kind of person who like, you go when you're low, like you'll bring that person up, et cetera. And all he did, he just responded to the text with tm.org. I'm like, what is, or just TM or I don't know. And I look it up and I'm like, meditation. Like he must have sent me the wrong link. Like, what is this? Right. And then I was like, well, if he's doing it, and I signed up, and he's like, okay, just text me when you've done it and like taking the first course, like to make me do it. And I was like, oh, this is, I like this. This is working for me.
Yeah.
So that helps. So, this is a very long-winded way.
No, it's okay. I rarely speak to anybody who says, yeah, I did meditation. I think it's stupid. I mean, right. I'm sure there are people out there who I think don't surrender to or stay committed to the practice of meditation. And therefore it perhaps doesn't give them the sort of benefits that are available. But rarely do I have somebody say, oh, that was horrible. So
yeah.
Now what would you say? And I think we've talked about a lot of things and some of them being breakthroughs. Was there a specific breakthrough that when I asked you to do this interview, you wanted to discuss?
Well, again, it was when my nephew said, Auntie, we're family. And it was really that moment where we're like, yeah, you're right, kid.
Gotcha.
Where's my stuff that supports that? Where's my community?
Okay, got it. That's why I wasn't sure. I didn't want to gloss over that was the breakthrough, because I like, us humans, we have a lot of breakthroughs from the beginning till the end. And I just wanted to make sure that I knew when I started investigating and exploring who you were and what you've been up to, and you're watching your TED Talk specifically, there's a lot of emotion there. There's a lot of heart in what you're doing. And you're not taking it lightly. And it's not just a business. There's something deeper going on. And like you said, when you get people emailing you in tears and knowing that you're striking a chord with people, there's something that goes so much more beyond entrepreneurship or running a business. It becomes something for humanity. I mean, I don't want to sound too, woo-woo about it, but you've taken on a big responsibility. What would you say? You've talked with a lot of people. I'm sure you've done many, many interviews, and you maybe even heard this, it's not an uncommon question, but is there something you think that others who know you would be surprised to learn?
I think that, it's hard for me to answer the question because I do write so personally and vulnerably, and I have shared so many of my inner thoughts. But I think, I would almost turn around and ask myself, the things that surprised me on this journey. And that was, if I were to say if there were a second breakthrough, it would be that piece I wrote for Huffington Post, The Truth About Childless Women, not because, I had intended it or that I didn't expect it to go viral. I didn't even know if anybody was going to read it. For me, I realized a few things that my honesty, my vulnerability, my being able to express it in a way that was readable was powerful. And I mean, this week, Monday, I got an email from, there's this, a Facebook page, Love Matters Most, or whatever. I'm sorry that I'm not remembering it. Love Matters Most, I believe is what it is.
Okay.
Because their website and Facebook page are the three words, but different order. So, they had emailed me randomly, could they republish a piece that I wrote called My Secret Grief, 35 Single and Childless, which I wrote in January 2012, which was about my life in my mid-30s. So it was really about, a few years before having written it. And I said, sure you could, because 7.8 million fans on Facebook. And, it has it's blown up again over there. And again, the emails, the comments, the Twitter, every which way they're trying to reach me, even LinkedIn, to tell me how much they needed to hear what I said, that they're not alone.
Yep.
I've had women who literally email me. I mean, these emails are time stamped between midnight and 4 a.m. And the last one, a couple of weeks ago that sort of came randomly from that piece originally that's on psychologytoday.com was, she told me her story and said, I just want you to know I was in a very dark place and you saved a life. So
at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right? Helping each other out.
Yeah.
It's all about helping each other out.
It's about helping each other out, having a meaningful life. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, being a contribution, being of service. At the crux of it, I believe that that's the name of the game, giving back. And that's what you're doing. And I think, what was I gonna, I just lost my train of thought. That's what happens when you're listening to somebody, right?
Right? So it means you're a good listener.
Well, when I came up with wanting to do this podcast, it was this gnawing feeling. It was this drawing, pulling kind of feeling that whenever I would talk to friends, family members about their lives, about what was going on, about breakthroughs they'd had in their lives, victories, triumphs, breakdowns, whatever it was. And I'd have these conversations on the phone. I'd get off the phone and I was totally lit up, turned on. And I felt good. I just felt good. And it was just talking. It was just listening. And I thought, wait a minute, maybe other people will feel the same way I'm feeling by being a fly on the wall, by getting to listen to other people who are best-selling authors, people who are Emmy Award-winning actors, people who are owners and entrepreneurs of multi-million-dollar companies, or, a buddy across the street. But at the end of the day, we're all in this together. No one's got it all figured out.
We are. We're all in this together. And I think the key is, especially for anybody who's listening thinking, well, how do I get that breakthrough? Where is it? I've been looking for it.
Yep.
And, I think the magic of it is to believe it's coming and to be open to the fact that it's coming and that you may not know when it's coming and how it's coming. Mm-hmm. And it may not be expected the way you thought, but it's coming.
It is, and I hesitate to use the word faith because people immediately go, oh, I don't want to talk about religion. But it does have to do with faith as far as I'm concerned. You do have to believe something before it's actually shown up. And I think it also has to do with, at least in my experience, is choosing one way or the other. Choose. What happens, I think, for me in my past, where the breakdown stayed around a lot longer than I wanted it to, was because I wasn't choosing. I wasn't taking an action. I didn't go this way or that. I just sat in limbo and wondered why things weren't going the way I wanted them to go. Well, it's because I wasn't actually doing anything about it. So I think that's another piece for me when people ask about breakthroughs is make a choice. You can recalibrate if you need to, but just step into something and trust that that's the way to go.
You don't know your potential until you step into it.
That's right.
Like, I didn't know I was a writer, and here I wrote 2 books. And so.
Well, I was going to say that's another interesting breakthrough. I heard you say something, and tell me if I'm wrong. When you got your second deal for Otherhood, so you go to a publisher and they say, okay, Melanie, here's a bunch of money. Go write a book. You have 6 months, right?
Yeah.
Is that the basic gist of it? Okay. And you're like, okay, but wait, don't write anything you've already written. Go ahead. Okay. Now you're sitting there. Now what do I do? I've just been given exactly what I want and I don't know what to do next. And you did it. You stepped into it. I think that's another, from over here, that occurs to me like a breakthrough in and of itself.
Thank you. And I agree. And especially after having, written a first book, I having never given birth, it's unfair for me to compare it. But, like women who have given birth will say, my God, if I remembered the pain of that, I never would have had a second child. And if you remember the pain of writing your first book and then publishing it, like you have to market it and get out there. You wouldn't write the second, and the second was much more personal and deeper and, vulnerable. And it was the darkest, loneliest, hardest, most vulnerable and most full of light and full of air and full of joy, time of my life. It was, that I can remember. It was everything. It was, my life, or at least the more recent decades of my life put into this order. And in the meantime, also, I was interviewing women about different areas of their lives when it came to, living in otherhood, being a woman who expected love, marriage, and children. And so, there's dating in it and sex and girlfriends and yes, sure, you're right. I don't need a man to buy my own home, but I bought it. And now I'm sad because I'm sitting here and I'm alone.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I can do it all, but it's not the way I wanted it. So, I think that what I was doing was writing not just my story, but also knowing I was writing their story.
Sure.
And because the stories are so universal, I was writing everybody's story. And so that helped, in the process.
Uh-huh.
It's not easy. But, in the book, I say this as somebody who sort of looks at it, having written it. It was published in 2014. So it received a Booklist starred review. So as somebody who never took like an official writing course, to be given a starred review by a prestigious reviewer is pretty cool. For me, that was like, oh, wait a minute. No. I know I've written 2 books, but like maybe I really am a writer.
That's what's so amazing to me. Like the stories you were saying earlier, we make up stories. You had
Mm-hmm.
it somewhere in your brain that you weren't a writer,
Mm-hmm.
and you believed it. And somehow, fortunately for you, your external circumstances transformed that, and you stepped into something that you didn't believe and did it anyway.
Well, I think more so it wasn't, I don't know that I even explored it as a genuine profession, meaning, like you're a kid, writers don't make any money. Like you just don't even right? It wasn't like a legit thing to think about doing. But I do remember going to, in the mid 90s, I was at 92nd Street Y here in New York City, where they have a lot of prestigious authors and talks, and Cynthia Ozick was there, and it was this, I don't remember what book of essays she had.
I was just listening to Malcolm Gladwell, on a podcast there.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So it's, it's a intellectual, center here in New York. And I went to have her sign my book, and I don't know what I said to her. And gosh, I wish I remembered, but she looked at me and she said, "You're a writer." And I said, No, I'm not a writer. I'm in marketing. And I'm like, "No, you're a writer. I can tell." And so it just gave me chills again. So, and that didn't mean, okay, let me go become a writer, but I remembered it. When I was invited to speak at 92nd Street Y, they said, wow, like all those dots do connect, as Steve Jobs said, all those kind words, those people who can see you, the way that you don't see yourself, or the way that you don't give yourself permission, to your point, to see yourself.
But you can't really connect those dots until you look back.
Until you look back and you realize it and you appreciate it, and you'll give yourself permission to do that. I
love doing that exercise. It's a fun exercise to do, the looking back and connecting the dots to where you are. So, I hear somewhat of a thread in your experience in relationships, looking for Mr. Right. And I can't help but ask, are you dating someone? Are you in a relationship?
I'm not in a relationship, which I know it's crazy.
What is up? What are we going to do about that?
Right?
Who do I know in New York?
Right? Who do you know?
Who do I know?
Look, but I have to say, and I have a piece in the New York Post that I wrote about this when I was 47. I'm now 49. I'm 47 and dating better than ever. And it was true, and it is true, because in your 40s, especially when you are on the other side of hope for motherhood, and you're okay. You're a happy woman. You realize, gosh, it didn't happen. I'm still alive and well and happy. And gosh, life is, I say it's not the life I expected, but in many ways it's a life beyond my expectations. So here I am. And so when I go on a date, I'm no longer like the one leaning in, trying to make it work. I'm the one leaning back, and the guys are working for it finally, and I love it. And also, we're now in this generation. I know you're not on apps because you are married, but I'm on these apps, and I have to say that I have met some of the most wonderful men. I mean, and maybe because I am 49, and so I'm dating men, and it's New York, and I'm Jewish, and I date Jewish men, and they are often, have great careers, and I'm like, even if this is not, the rest of my life, I'm not even thinking about that. I'm enjoying getting to know this person. I'm in the moment. And I think when you're in your 40s, you begin to become in the moment and not looking for how this moment is going to get you to the next moment, which is going to get you to your happily ever after. Sure. I am having a lovely cocktail with a lovely man and having great conversation. And the moment is wonderful. I said to my friend a couple of months ago, I said, I think for me, dating is the new marriage. And I don't mean that in a way to put down marriage, certainly. And I do want to be married, but this is my life. Yeah. And so I'm not going to waste the time I'm with a man, to sort of say, oh, you know what? I don't really like, there's no chemistry. I'm just there. Like, this is life. This is my life.
Yeah, you're not halfway in your dates. You're all the way in.
I'm there. Yeah, I'm present. I'm interested and I'm not attached to what happens next. Like, if I'm really interested in the guy and I don't hear from him, I don't think twice about it. Like, maybe and maybe because I just haven't been like that madly in love with somebody on the first date recently, but I just know that I'm in the flow and it'll work. And for whatever reason, this is my path. Mm-hmm. This is where the wind is blowing. This is where I'm going. And I have, people have asked me, well, do you have regrets? And my answer is, and this is completely sincere, I don't mean this as a hokey thing, but I say that regret is behind me. And if I'm back there, I'll never be present in the moment to meet him here.
Mm. Well, it's an incredibly healthy, evolved state of mind. So I acknowledge you for that.
Thank you.
What's up next for you?
So lots of great things. So I'm moving toward research for this demographic. I did partner with 2 agencies over time, with Weber Shandwick on one, with KRC Research, and then on Shades of Otherhood in 2014, with DeVries Global PR. Now I've partnered, with an extraordinary guy, Michael DeChico, who's a wonderful market researcher. And we just finished a national survey with over 700 respondents. And we're working now on sharing that data, fascinating data, because we ask things that are beyond just general demographic data, but on politics and surprising insights there, on, shopping, food shopping, on how they spend on the children they love, how they feel about certain things. It's qualitative and quantitative. It's really wonderful. So I'm looking at that because data, while we know data is getting really bad rap recently, data is actually, from a business perspective, can be really vital and important and valuable. And for this demographic, what's so fascinating is that they answered it like a 20-minute survey. They just did it because they know that the cohort together is powerful, and that they know that I know what I'm doing, and I will take this data and I will share their story, and they will only gain from having shared their insights. It's not me taking things from them. I'm doing it so I can give back to this extraordinary cohort. So I'm excited about that. And then I've got some other narrative things that I'm working on, that I can't talk about yet, but hopefully they will pan out, and I look forward to sharing it then. And yeah, so, it's an interesting time because I'm bridging into the next decade of my company. And, I'm so thrilled and proud. And, the entourage, as I call this cohort, the AUNT entourage, they, are feeling such pride, for being noticed and acknowledged. So it's all moving forward.
Well, fantastic. That's great news. I'm not surprised. I know when I initially met you, back in 2011, that you were going to be up to big things for quite a while, and you are. So I'm really happy to hear that everything is going as well and smoothly as it is. And, good luck with the dating. I know he's on his way. I know he's on his way.
Thank you.
You seem to have your heart and your mind in the right space, aligned. It's fantastic. So, thank you so much for taking some time out of your afternoon to chat with me. And, remember to visit me on my website at breakthroughswithjordanmurphy.com. Follow me on Instagram at breakthroughswithjordan, Twitter at Jordan D. Murphy. And again, today's episode is sponsored by audible.com and Amazon Fresh. Check out those promotional giveaways on the front page of my website. To learn more about Melanie Notkin, Savvy Auntie, Otherhood, and all of her upcoming projects, visit melanienotkin.com. And stay tuned for more episodes of Breakthroughs with Jordan Murphy. Thanks again, Melanie.
Thank you.